Jake Morrison navigated the curving corridors of Kepler Station Academy, his worn backpack bumping against his shoulder. Morning light from a nearby star filtered through the vast windows, stretching long shadows across the metallic floor. Other students, a diverse array of extraterrestrial forms, milled about in small groups, their voices a soft hum of different languages and sounds. The Academy, housed within a colossal space station orbiting the gas giant Thyros Prime, had been Jake's home for nearly 2 years. He still marveled at the swirling clouds of the massive planet visible through the windows, a sight impossible to picture on Earth. He paused at his locker, extracting his tablet and notebooks. Today marked the start of his 3rd xenobiology semester, the study of alien life forms. He cherished the chance to learn about the galaxy's varied species, each uniquely adapted to its home planet's conditions. Nodding to familiar faces as he strode toward classroom 7B, he recognized Zara, a tall, slender Zilani with emerald skin and large eyes. The peaceful plant-eaters, known for their delicate fingers, were famous throughout the station for their gentle demeanor. Near the classroom door, Lynn, from the aquatic Murdi species, bobbed precariously within her mobility tank, an essential part of her breathing apparatus. Lynn's people, renowned for their mathematical and engineering prowess, exhibited a certain trepidation around other species. Inside the classroom, Jake settled into his usual seat in the 3rd row. The room's design accommodated the diverse student population, with seats varying in size and features to suit different species' needs. Displays of alien creatures and exotic plant life adorned the walls, showcasing the galaxy's biodiversity. Professor Veltar, a crystalline being whose body shimmered with the ethereal properties of living glass, floated near the front. Incredibly fragile, her structure was susceptible to even the slightest impact, yet she possessed an unrivaled grasp of biology, imparting complex concepts with clarity. "Good morning, students," Professor Veltar's voice, like wind chimes in the breeze, greeted the class. "I hope you had a restful break between semesters. Today we embark on our advanced xenobiology course, and I have some exciting news to share." Heads leaned forward, anticipation palpable in the air, particularly for the advanced xenobiology course, highly popular due to the opportunity of encountering species otherwise unreachable. "This semester," Professor Veltar continued, "we will welcome a special addition to our class. The Galactic Education Council has approved a new interspecies cooperation program. A student from a species previously excluded from our academic exchange program will join us." Zara raised one of her slender hands. "What species will be joining us?" Professor Veltar's crystalline body flickered, slightly dimming. "The student is from the Kavari species." The classroom erupted with a murmur of surprise. Jake noticed Lynn's tank bubbling anxiously. Even the flutterings, small bird-like creatures, seemed apprehensive, taking a step towards the door before regaining their composure. Jake, recalling his textbooks, frowned. Earth's interactions with the Kavari were minimal. From what he knew, they were one of the few carnivorous species in the local galactic region, a stark contrast to the overwhelmingly herbivorous or filter-feeding species of the Galactic Alliance. Professor Veltar's voice cut through the murmuring. A student named Hex, from the insect-like chitinoid species, inquired about the safety protocols. "Are you certain this is safe?" The Kavari are notoriously known for aggression. The Kavari student has been meticulously vetted and undergone rigorous psychological evaluations, Professor Veltar replied. "This program represents an essential step towards interspecies understanding. The student's name is Kathva, and he will join us tomorrow." A palpable unease settled over the classroom. Worried whispers rippled through the various species, heightened apprehension filling the air. Jake couldn't help but feel curious. Earth's abundant predators, bears, sharks, snakes, and felines, were part of a complex ecosystem. Students began to whisper about dropping the course. Zara approached, a concerned look in her eyes. "Are you troubled by tomorrow?" Jake responded. This seemed like a fantastic learning opportunity, not something to fear. Zara considered calmly. Humans are peculiar. Their ancestors were hunted, driving a fear of predators. There was a flicker of understanding in Zara's eyes. Jake arrived at the classroom 15 minutes early tomorrow, yearning to observe the other students' reactions. The hallways were unusually quiet. Several students clearly avoided this section of the academy. Half the class opted to skip the lecture, those present positioning themselves nearer the exits. Zara had taken a seat near the back, a practical precaution against potential danger. "I saved you a seat," she murmured. "I thought it's safer back here." Jake felt a wave of predatory energy as Kathva entered. Kathva, towering at 7 feet, possessed a lean and capable physique. His skin was a dark grey, marked with shifting, ominous patterns. An elongated head and a noticeable grid of sharp teeth completed the terrifying image. The atmosphere grew tense, with Professor Veltar standing near the emergency communication panel, her crystalline form seeming to flicker with fear. "Before our new classmate arrives," she announced, her voice firm, "I urge you all to maintain composure." The classroom felt different now, filled with a chilling presence, as if it was waiting for an unseen command. His hands ended in claws that seemed capable of slicing through metal. But it was Kethva's eyes that most struck Jake. Bright yellow, they tracked every movement in the room, simultaneously. Students froze, like deer caught in headlights, as those eyes swept across the classroom. The reaction from Jake's classmates was immediate and dramatic. 3 bolted from the room, wordless. Lynn, activating her mobility device, hurried towards the exit, agitated, bubbling noises emanating from her water tank. Others pressed against the walls, as far from Kethva as possible. Kethva paused in the doorway, and Jake saw confusion in those yellow eyes. The Kavari likely expected some nervousness, but the intense fear in the room surprised him. "Please, everyone, remain calm," Professor Veltar pleaded, her musical voice trembling. "Kethva, please choose any available seat." The Kavari began walking down the aisle, students instinctively leaning away or moving to farther seats. Jake, with scientific curiosity, observed Kethva's movements triggering primal fear responses in every non-predator species. Fascinatingly, the Kavari didn't appear to be trying to frighten anyone. His movements were controlled, purposeful, and his claws were retracted. Yet, there was an inescapable apex predator aura about his bearing. Kethva's yellow eyes scanned for an empty seat where his presence would cause the least disruption. Most remaining students huddled near the back, leaving front rows empty. Then, those predatory eyes met Jake's gaze. Jake returned the look, calm and without fear or aggression, a simple nod acknowledging a new classmate. Kethva stopped, his head tilted slightly, and Jake almost saw confusion in his expression. Here was a member of a species Kethva didn't recognize, yet this individual showed no typical prey response. After a moment, Kethva changed direction and walked to Jake's row, smoothly taking the empty seat next to him. The remaining students held their breath. Zara, in the back row, looked about to faint. "Hello," Jake said quietly. "I'm Jake Morrison. Welcome to our xenobiology class." Kethva turned to study Jake more closely. Up close, intricate patterns shifted color subtly on the Kavari's skin. His teeth were indeed sharp, but his expression seemed curious rather than threatening. "I am Kethva of the Hunting Moon clan," the Kavari replied. His voice was deep, resonating oddly like a large cat's purr. "You are not afraid?" "Should I be?" Jake asked. "Most species find my presence disturbing." "You do not smell of fear." Jake smiled. "I'm from Earth. We're pretty used to predators there." "Earth," Kethva repeated slowly. I have not heard of this world. What classification is it? Class 12, Death World, Jake answered casually. Professor Veltar, having overheard their exchange, gasped, Class 12, Mr. Morrison? Surely you mean Class 2? No, Professor. Earth is definitely a Class 12. We have earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts, ice ages, and a million species that can kill you if you aren't careful. The classroom fell silent. Most planets supporting intelligent life were classified 1 to 4, with 4 considered dangerous. A Class 12 world was almost unheard of for developing intelligent life. Kethvar stared at Jake with newfound interest. Your people evolved on a world more dangerous than mine. Probably, Jake said. What class is your home world? Class 8, replied Kethvar. Jake nodded. Yeah, Earth is definitely more dangerous than that. Professor Veltar, recovering, attempted to regain control. Perhaps we should begin today's lesson. We will be discussing the various evolutionary pressures that shape different species. As her lecture began, Jake noticed Kethvar continually glancing at him. The Kavari seemed to be re-evaluating everything he thought he knew about Earth species. Kethvar's presence continued to impact the other students, causing jumps and flinches at his every movement or sudden noise. It was an interesting semester. Over the next 2 weeks, Jake observed the shifting dynamics with fascination. Fear of Kethvar had morphed into something more complex. The Kavari wasn't overtly threatening, but his very presence created problems. Automatically, his eyes tracked movements in the room. Sudden noises saw his head snap. These weren't conscious choices. Jake knew Kethvar was genuinely trying to fit in, but millions of years of evolution had ingrained instinctive responses. Other students, exhibiting classic prey animal responses, moved in groups, avoiding direct eye contact, and positioned themselves near exits. Some had stopped attending, and whispers circulated about students petitioning to remove the Kavari from the program. Jake found himself becoming an unofficial mediator, a shield unintentionally erected by students who were affected by the Kavari's predator instincts. Zara would only venture near the front when Jake was present. Lynn had started timing her arrivals to match your schedule, Jake told Zara one day. Kethvar is trying hard to be friendly, but everyone treats him like he's about to hunt them. Zara's green skin seemed paler. Jake, you don't understand. When he looks at us, our bodies instinctively want to run. It's uncontrollable, Jake pointed out. But you can control your actions. You don't have to run every time he moves. Easy for you to say, Zara replied. Humans apparently don't have normal survival instincts. Their conversation was interrupted by commotion near the biodome entrance. The Academy's biodome, an immense enclosed area housing plants and animals from various worlds, was a popular student study and relaxation spot. Professor Veltar was leading a xenobiology field trip to observe new specimens from a Vega system planet. 15 students were clustered near the entrance, all huddled together. In the center, looking uneasy and isolated, was Kethvar. This is ridiculous, Jake muttered. He approached Kethvar. How's it going? Kethvar's yellow eyes looked troubled. I do not understand, he said quietly. On my world, different clans gather, tension exists, but we eventually find our places. Here, others won't accept my presence. They're scared, Jake explained. Most of these species evolved as prey animals. Their instincts tell them you're dangerous. But I mean them no harm, Kethvar protested. I've studied years to attend this academy. I want to learn, not hunt. Jake nodded. I know that, but evolution is hard to argue with. Professor Veltar's voice broke the silence. Students, please follow me into the biodome. Stay together, do not wander. As they entered, students scattered, creating distance while following the instructions. Kethvar found himself walking alone, with others maintaining a 10-foot buffer. The biodome was stunning, teeming with unknown Earth flora. Professor Veltar explained the ecosystem, but Jake watched his classmates. Anxiety about Kethva's presence affected focus. Then, a small, rabbit-like creature emerged from a patch of plants. A neutral, familiar biodome resident, it hopped into the class area. Keith, spotting the movement, turned his gaze on the small creature. His predator instincts immediately took hold. His posture shifted, muscles tensed, claws partially extended, and he moved toward the animal. The students reacted swiftly and dramatically. Shrieks filled the air as some fled towards the exits. Others froze, eyes wide with terror. Lynn, backing away as quickly as her mobility device allowed, activated the alarm on her water tank. The small animal, sensing the danger, darted back into the foliage. Keith seemed to awaken from his instinctive trance. Confusion and a hint of shame crossed his face as he looked around at the panicked students. I did not mean, he began, but Professor Veltar was already intervening. Everyone, please calm down, she called out, her crystalline body vibrating with stress. The situation is under control. However, the situation was far from under control. 3 more students had left the biodome, and those remaining now stared at Keith with pure terror. Uncomfortable fear had transformed into genuine panic. Jake observed Keith, realizing what had transpired. The Kavari's shoulders slumped, his predatory stance dissolving completely. He looked defeated and ashamed. Class dismissed, Professor Veltar announced. Please return to your dormitories. As students hurried out, Jake approached Keith, who stood alone in the biodome's center. That was just instinct, Jake said softly. You couldn't help it. Keith's yellow eyes met Jake's gaze. Perhaps the others are right to fear me. Perhaps I don't belong here. Jake considered his response carefully. On Earth, humans had learned to coexist with their predatory instincts. They possessed hunting drives, but had redirected them into various activities: sports, competition, and even video games. These activities satisfied primal urges without causing harm. You belong here, Jake said firmly. You simply need to learn to manage your instincts, the way humans have learned to manage ours. Humans have hunting instincts, Keith asked, surprised. Jake smiled. Oh, absolutely. We're predators too. We just excel at concealing it. The following day, Jake found Keith sitting alone in the Academy's observation lounge, staring out at the swirling clouds of Thyros Prime. Keith appeared dejected, holding a datapad, likely containing his withdrawal paperwork. Mind if I sit? Jake asked. Keith gestured to the empty chairs around him. There are many seats available. There are always many available around me. Jake sat down, sharing Keith's gaze out the window. The gas giant storms, capable of swallowing planets, raced across its surface. You're thinking about leaving, Jake observed. The program director suggested it might be best, Keith replied. Yesterday's incident caused several students to file formal complaints. They say I'm a danger to the academic environment. What do you think? Jake inquired. Keith remained silent for a long moment. I think they may be right. When I saw that small creature, something inside me shifted. For a moment, I wasn't a student or a scholar, but a hunter. That frightens me as much as it frightened them. Jake nodded. Want to hear something interesting about humans? What? We're persistence hunters. Do you know what that means? Keith shook his head. It means we don't rely on speed or strength to catch prey. We use endurance and intelligence. Our ancestors would track an animal for hours, even days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're not the fastest or strongest predators, but we're the most patient and determined. Keith turned to look at Jake with renewed interest. Your people were hunters. Still are in some places, Jake said. But here's the point. Humans are different from most predators. We discovered that cooperation is more effective than competition. Instead of hunting each other, we hunted together. Instead of fighting over territory, we shared it. But you still have the hunting instincts, Keith stated. Absolutely, Jake said. Watch humans play sports or compete in business or play video games. We've redirected our predatory drives into activities that don't involve killing anything. Jake pulled out his tablet and showed Keith videos of humans playing football, running marathons, competing in martial arts tournaments, and engaging in extreme sports. This is hunting behavior, Jake explained, showing a clip of a human free-climbing a cliff face. The human is testing themselves against a dangerous environment, using skills their ancestors needed for survival, but no one gets hurt. Keith studied the videos with fascination. These humans are deliberately putting themselves in danger for enjoyment. That's exactly right. We redirect our need for challenge and risk into recreation. It satisfies the predator part of our brain, without us needing to prey on other creatures. Show me more, Keith requested. Jake showed Keith videos of traditional human hunting, then modern humans running ultramarathons. Your people learn to control their instincts, Keith said thoughtfully. We learn to redirect them, Jake corrected. The instincts are still there. We just found better ways to use them. But what about when you're threatened? What happens to your control? Jake considered this cautiously. That's where things get interesting. Humans can be very dangerous when necessary, but we also developed strong social bonds, helping us know when it's okay to be dangerous and when it's not. Keith leaned forward. Explain. Remember yesterday when you focused on that small animal? Your hunting instincts kicked in because you saw prey. But what if instead of prey, you saw a threat to the other students? What if something tried to hurt them? I would have protected them, Keith said immediately. Exactly. Humans learn to use their predatory abilities to protect their group, instead of just hunting for food. We became guardians as well as hunters. Jake showed Keith more videos. These included human rescuers in dangerous situations, firefighters, soldiers. Same instincts, different targets, Jake explained. Instead of hunting prey, we hunt threats to our people. Keith was quiet for several minutes, processing what Jake had shown him. You think I could learn to redirect my instincts, rather than suppress them? I think you're already doing it, Jake said. Yesterday, when you realized what had happened, you stopped immediately. You felt bad about frightening the other students. That shows you care about them, not just about hunting. But they will never trust me, Keith said sadly. How can I redirect my instincts to protect people who see me as a threat? Jake smiled. Start small, show them you're aware of their fear, and that you're willing to work with it instead of against it. For example, sit near the back of the classroom instead of the front. Minimize sudden movements and keep your claws retracted. Keith nodded slowly. These are techniques for putting prey at ease. Think of them as techniques for putting friends at ease. The goal isn't to hunt them or be hunted. It's to coexist peacefully. And if a real threat appeared, then you could show them what a Kavari guardian looks like, not a hunter. Keith set aside his withdrawal paperwork. You really think this could work? I think it's worth trying. It will take time and patience. Their fear is real, even if it's not rational. Humans must be very wise to have learned these lessons, Keith said. Jake laughed. We're not wise at all. We just made a lot of mistakes and eventually figured out better ways to do things. It took us thousands of years to get good at cooperation, but you did get good at it. Most of the time, Jake agreed. And when we don't, we have social structures in place to remind us what's expected. Keith stood up, his decision made. I would like to try your approach. Will you help me? Of course, Jake said. But remember, this won't happen overnight. Evolution programmed both you and them with these responses. It's going to take time and patience. They started walking back towards the academic section of the station. What made you decide to help me? Keith asked. You could have simply ignored the situation like the other students. Jake paused. I guess it's because I recognize a fellow predator trying to be better than his instincts. That's something I can respect. 3 weeks later, things in the xenobiology class had slightly improved. Keith followed Jake's advice, appearing less threatening. He sat in the back of the classroom, moved slowly and deliberately, and kept his claws retracted whenever possible. The other students were still nervous, but at least they weren't running from the room anymore. Jake reviewed his notes in the academy library when his tablet buzzed with an urgent message from Professor Veltar. All xenobiology students were to report to the main conference room immediately for a crucial announcement. Arriving, Jake found his classmates clustered in anxious whispers. Keithva, as usual, stood by the far wall. Before them stood unfamiliar figures. Professor Veltar, her crystalline form displaying more stress fractures than usual, hovered near the center. Beside her stood a military man from the Earth Defense Force and a confidently poised woman in civilian garb, likely a scientist. The real focus, however, were the 3 immense Kavari figures behind them. Their imposing size and predator-like demeanor dwarfed even Keithva. An intense, predatory energy filled the room, prompting several students to head for the exits. Students, Professor Veltar began, her voice barely steady. Meet Commander Rex Torres of Earth Defense, Dr. Nina Walsh of the interspecies Psychology Institute, and the delegation from the Kavari Homeworld Council. At the head of these figures strode Seer, war leader of the Northern Territories. His dark scales shimmered with silver, and his piercing yellow eyes swept the room with casual authority. I am Seer, he declared, his voice a deep rumble resonant with the distant thunder Jake imagined. I have arrived to evaluate this experiment. His dismissal of the interspecies integration program hung heavy in the air. Dr. Walsh attempted to regain control. The Council requested a progress report on the interspecies cooperation initiative. We are here to observe program effectiveness and expand it to other institutions if warranted. Commander Torres remained silent, his eyes scanning the room, assessing potential threats and escape pathways. Seer, moving deeper into the room, amplified the general apprehension. The students, once comfortable in Keithva's presence, now recognized the stark contrast between themselves and these formidable creatures, capable of ending their lives with ease. Where are these prey creatures learning to interact with predators? Seer asked derisively. I see only fear and weakness. Professor Veltar argued that the students were making significant progress, learning to surpass instinctive reactions and engage in academic cooperation. And you, young one? Seer questioned, his gaze falling on Keithva. Have you been learning to hunt among the herbivores? Keithva, visibly uneasy, replied, I have been learning to study alongside other species. The humans have taught me much about cooperation and restraint. Seer's gaze swept the room, seeking the humans. Jake, realizing he hadn't been identified, raised his hand. I'm human, he said quietly. Seer's attention locked onto Jake, and the pressure of those predator eyes made other students tremble. Unlike his classmates, Jake maintained steady eye contact. You do not smell of fear, Seer observed with surprise. Should I? Jake countered, echoing a question he'd posed to Keithva weeks before. Most prey animals cannot help but fear us. It is their nature. I'm not a prey animal, Jake insisted. The temperature in the room seemed to fall. Even Dr. Walsh and Commander Torres observed the exchange with tension. Seer approached, his towering form looming over Jake. What are you then? A xenobiology student from Earth, Jake calmly replied. Same as everyone else here. Earth, Seer repeated, his voice low and intense. Unknown territory. I am unfamiliar with this world. What manner of prey comes from Earth? Commander Torres, stepping up, declared, Earth is a Class 12 death world. Humans are the dominant species. Seer scoffed. Class 12. Impossible. No prey could evolve in such a world. Dr. Walsh activated a holographic display showcasing images of Earth's extreme weather, storms, eruptions, floods, and its wildlife. Then the display showed humans, hunters, explorers, builders, working in groups, surviving and prospering in challenging environments. Dr. Walsh explained that humans weren't strong, they were smart and cooperative. Seer scrutinized the images. These humans hunt in packs, they cultivate, they explore, they protect their communities. Commander Torres added, "They are apex predators who chose cooperation over domination." Seer's response was immediate. "Impossible," he declared. "Apex predators do not cooperate, they compete for dominance." "We compete constantly," Jake countered, "but we compete over creating, learning, and helping others. We turned competition into a means of fostering betterment rather than elimination." "And if threatened," Seer questioned, "what happens to this cooperation?" "Then we stop our competition with each other and turn against the threat." The room became silent, even the other Kavari attentive. Approaching Jake once more, Seer brought his face close. "You speak like a predator, but you appear weak and small. Appearances can be deceiving." Something in Jake's tone made Seer pause. The war leader sensed an unexpected element. "I think we need a more thorough evaluation of this program, and these humans in particular," he announced. The next day, the xenobiology classroom was rearranged. Desks were pushed aside. Seer and the other Kavari stood amidst Dr. Walsh, Commander Torres, and Professor Veltar. Academy security officers stood near the exits. Students huddled in the far corners, away from the Kavari. As Jake made his way to his usual spot, Keithva appeared uneasy, though submitting to Seer's authority. "Today we conduct a practical evaluation," Seer stated. "I want to see how these species react under pressure." Dr. Walsh objected. "War leader, this isn't appropriate in an academic environment." Seer retorted, "The universe is not an academic setting. If these species interact in the real galaxy, they must be tested." Commander Torres moved closer to Jake, his hand resting near his sidearm. Jake appreciated the gesture, though he suspected a conventional weapon wouldn't be effective against a Kavari war leader. Seer activated a device, filling the room with Kavari hunting pheromones. The effect on most of the students was immediate. They collapsed from terror. Jake, however, experienced something different. His heart quickened and his muscles tensed. But instead of fear, he felt his own primal instincts awaken, a similar response to human facing danger. "Interesting," Seer observed, studying Jake's reaction. "The human does not collapse in terror." This was an unexpected outcome. Sektar drew closer, his presence a tangible weight on Jake. "But you feel something," the war leader declared. "I feel ready," Jake replied simply. "Ready for what?" "Whatever comes next." Sektar smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Show me what a human does when threatened." The war leader moved swiftly toward Zara, who recoiled against the wall, terror etched on her face. It was a test, not an attack, but Jake reacted instantly. Stepping between Sektar and Zara, he shifted his posture, a transformation that even the Kavari war leader observed. Jake remained relaxed, yet alert, hands loose but ready. A different expression replaced his usual friendly demeanor. A cold, focused intensity now filled his eyes. "Step back," Jake said softly. Sektar halted, his predator instincts screaming warning. The human no longer seemed prey. Something in Jake's eyes signaled contained ferocity. "You threaten me," Sektar challenged, amusement lacing his voice. "I am protecting my classmate," Jake countered. "There's a difference." The implication hung heavy in the air. If Zara needed to confront fear, it would be Jake who taught her. "Then you'll learn about real humans." Sektar, larger and stronger, wielding natural weapons, was nonetheless challenged by Jake's unyielding calm and confidence. Commander Torres intervened. "War leader, perhaps we should examine human capabilities in a controlled environment." "No," Sektar retorted, his gaze locked on Jake. "I want to see what this human will do." The war leader advanced, testing Jake's resolve. Jake remained unmoved, shifting his weight subtly. Anyone familiar with body language recognized the readiness to fight or flee. War leader Katha spoke, interrupting the escalating tension. "The human exhibits restraint, a choice made by the predator. Perhaps further testing is inappropriate." Sektar glanced at the younger Kavari. "You defend this human. I defend the principle." Keva responded. "Strength used to protect is more valuable than strength used to dominate." Dr. Walsh seized the opportunity. "This is precisely our program's goal, different species learning from one another's strengths." Undeterred, Sektar turned his attention to Professor Veltar, the most vulnerable in the room. Instinctively, every student reacted. Jake moved swiftly, slipping between Sektar and the professor in a motion that blended skill and instinct. Simultaneously, a chain reaction unfolded, the other students instinctively joining the defense. Keithva positioned himself to support Jake, while even the terrified prey species students found the courage to shield the professor. Sektar paused. "Remarkable," he declared, now understanding the situation. "The threat to one becomes a threat to all. That is how cooperation works." "We protect each other," Jake affirmed, maintaining his vigilance. Sektar retreated, his pheromone device deactivated. The oppressive tension dissipated, though the students remained shaken. "I begin to understand," Sektar mused. "This human is not merely strong, he acts despite fear. His strength inspires strength in others." Commander Torres nodded. "Humans don't eliminate their survival instincts, but redirect them to protect their community." Dr. Walsh furiously took notes. "We observe a fundamental difference: predatory dominance versus protective dominance. Both require similar capabilities, but serve opposite social functions." Sektar regarded Jake with a mix of respect and something akin to comprehension. "You were prepared to combat me to protect others." "If necessary," Jake admitted. "But ideally, there are better solutions." "Because you feared losing," Jake shook his head. "Because fighting should be the last option, not the first. There are usually better approaches." "There were times," he acknowledged, "where humans, when truly needed, could prove exceptionally dangerous," his expression darkening slightly. Sektar studied him for a moment before addressing the entire room. "I have observed enough. This program will continue and expand, with a new awareness rooted in our findings." Turning to Jake again. "What you exhibited today was not disguised weakness, but strength choosing moderation, rare in predator species." "Maybe," Jake acknowledged, relaxing slightly, "but it works for us." As the delegation prepared to depart, Kethva approached Jake. "Thank you for demonstrating that predators can act as guardians, not just hunters." "You too," Jake smiled. "You chose to stand with us instead of with them." "I learned from the best teacher," Kethva replied. The Kavari delegation's visit resonated throughout Kepler Station Academy. Jake, unexpectedly, was the center of attention, attracting inquiries from various species about Earth and its inhabitants. Some were intrigued by human survival on such a challenging world. Others sought to understand their ability to control predatory instincts while maintaining effectiveness. In Jake's classroom, the aftermath was profound. The dynamic between Kethva and the other students altered, respect replacing mere fear after seeing the courage of both. Zara, first to act, sought understanding. "How do I get past that?" "Perhaps you don't, but rather learn to coexist with it," offered Jake. He gestured for Katha to join them. "Katha, explain what is felt when you look at Zara." The Kavari thought for a moment. "I perceive a swift, attentive individual, someone capable of escape and also intellect and potential, suggesting a valuable ally." "You don't see prey?" Zara asked, surprised. "Potential," corrected Katha. In the beginning, what I witnessed was prey behavior, because that's what you were embodying. Now I see more, Jake agreed. Fear is information. It alerts you to potential threat, but doesn't differentiate threat from protector. Informal study sessions, inclusive of both species, began. The goal was to create structure and predictability, fostering safety while learning. Dr. Walsh, permanently stationed at the academy, commented on Jake's success bridging species differing in survival strategies. "You're establishing protocols," she remarked. "These students are actively overriding millennia of instinctual responses with conscious choice." "Not overriding," Jake corrected, "but enhancing. Humans didn't simply cease to be predators. Rather, we redirected that instinct to be problem solvers, not prey hunters." Professor Veltar's research project led to mixed group studies of predator-prey relationships in diverse ecosystems. Initially, the group dynamic was awkward. The prey species were hesitant, while Cather had difficulty interacting without provoking fear. Jake suggested beginning with each member detailing their species' survival strategies. Lynn, through her tank's translation, revealed how her aquatic people used group coordination and rapid communication to avoid predators, displaying complex, near-instantaneous informational exchanges. Zara detailed the Zelanis' speed, agility, and chemical trace detection. Others shared their species' survival strategies. Then came Cather, who described Kavari hunting methods not as attacks, but as problem-solving techniques. Strategy, coordination, adaptation, and adjustments to changing environments. "Identical skills," Lynn mused, "for planning, collaboration, and adaptation to circumstances." Cather concurred. "The key," Jake observed, "lay not in altering methods, but in the pursuit of a common objective." "Precisely," he agreed, smiling. Predators and prey, often employing similar abilities, merely applied them differently. As the project progressed, a remarkable phenomenon unfolded. Students, transcending species distinctions, grasped the inherent intelligence and prowess each individual brought to the collective. Zara's lightning-fast reflexes boosted data acquisition. Lynn's mathematical acumen facilitated pattern analysis, and Kath's tracking abilities illuminated animal behaviors in ways others couldn't. Their presentation to the class astonished Professor Veltar with the depth of their findings. Integrating perspectives heretofore unseen yielded fresh insights into predator-prey interactions. This was the very essence of the integration program's design, a synergy of knowledge born from diverse minds. After class, Kethver approached the group, his demeanor hinting at a touch of shyness. "Thank you," he said to the students representing prey species. "Collaborating with you has revealed that intelligence extends beyond hunting proficiency." Zara, surprising herself and others, drew near Kethver, a closer proximity than before. Working alongside these individuals, she understood that predators could opt for protection. Lynn's tank, bubbling with what Jake identified as laughter, echoed the shared understanding. Diversity, in combination, yields fortitude. Dr. Walsh, observing the presentation, addressed Jake later. "You've accomplished something remarkable. These students aren't merely tolerating each other. They're actively prioritizing cooperation over instinct. They were ready for it. All it took was someone to demonstrate the possibility." "Experience," Jake responded, surveying the classroom, now a space where creatures of contrasting species collaborated seamlessly on projects. A few months earlier, such intermingling would have been unimaginable. "Humans have shown this is attainable," Jake stated concisely. "And if we can transcend our programming, so can others." News of the integration's success spread through galactic institutions. The Galactic Education Council outlined plans for expansion, adopting Kepler Station Academy as a model for interspecies harmony. Nonetheless, for Jake, the true triumph remained personal. Watching Kethva and Zara cooperate on a research problem, their differing perspectives coalescing into innovative solutions. This was remarkable. Lynn's confidence soared as she realized her mathematical skills held equivalent merit to a predator's hunting prowess. Professor Veltar's joy manifested in a classroom where impossible interplays had become commonplace. Evolution had equipped each species with unique survival tools. Cooperation unlocked unforeseen collaborative potential. 6 months later, Jake stood in the Galactic Academic Council's Grand Assembly Hall, confronted by representatives from hundreds of species. The hall, vast and breathtaking, accommodated the galactic community's diverse inhabitants. Delegates, ranging from those who floated in tanks to those positioned on custom platforms, and even barely visible energy forms, filled the space. Beside Jake stood Kethva, a marked change from the hesitant, isolated student he once was. His demeanor, now quiet and self-assured, no longer triggered apprehensions in the other species around him. He had mastered modulating his predatory aura without abandoning his innate dignity. "Nervous?" Keith asked gently as they awaited their presentation. "A little," Jake confessed. "This is on a larger scale than our classroom back at the academy." Professor Veltar, nearby, radiated brilliance under the hall's illumination. Invited to present their research, the council was so impressed that the integration program was slated for galactic implementation. Dr. Walsh provided concluding reports. The assessments, she noted, painted a remarkable picture. Increased problem-solving skills, better stress management, and elevated social cooperation were all prominent features of the integrated program participants. Commander Torres, a liaison between human interests and Kavari leadership, nodded approvingly, emphasizing the skills they acquired. Capabilities useful throughout the universe, not confined by regional divisions. The presentation commenced, with Professor Veltar meticulously explaining the program's theoretical underpinnings. Different evolutionary strategies leading to varied intelligences. Jake and Kethva's presentation followed, demonstrating the advantages of interspecies collaboration through their project. Jake began. "Our goal was to explore predator-prey relationships in extraterrestrial environments. Instead, we found something far more meaningful." Kethva echoed. "Categories like predator and prey are oversimplifications. Each species, with developed survival strategies, complements others in unexpected ways. They presented their data, revealing new insights, observations single-species teams had failed to make. Collaboration, they argued, enabled species to leverage their abilities collectively. An ambassador from an established prey species raised a valid concern. While intriguing, how do we address fear responses ingrained through evolution? Kethva addressed this concern by stating, "Fear endures, and perhaps should. It serves as valuable information about potential risks. However, we can differentiate fear of the unknown from that of genuine threats. Time and patience are key." Jake added, "We don't suppress innate responses, but rather learn to coexist with them." A carnivorous species delegate questioned, "How do predators manage instinctive drives in shared environments?" "Like humans control their drives," Kethva responded, "redirecting them to more productive ends. We seek solutions instead of prey, strive for collective advancement rather than dominance." Data from Dr. Walsh's psychological assessments underscored this approach. Both predator and prey species performed better in collaboration. Prey exhibited enhanced confidence and creativity, while predators displayed improved impulse control and social awareness. A representative from the Kavari Homeworld Council, much to Jake's surprise, was Seer, the war leader, who had previously questioned the program's viability. "Initially," Seer announced, "we anticipated chaos, We were wrong. Admitting error in public was rare for the Kavari. But Sear continued, highlighting that true strength stems not from conquering others, but from a commitment to nurturing them. This idea of guardian predators offers unprecedented perspective, he concluded, directly addressing Jake and Kethva, demonstrating that evolution is not a limitation, but a pathway to something greater. The presentation concluded with a demonstration led by Jake, Kethva, and a team including Zara, Lynn, and others. Working together, they resolved a complex rescue simulation for a failing space station, requiring the diverse skills of the various species. Their collaborative problem resolution was achieved far quicker than similar attempts by solely single-species teams. Professor Veltar concluded, "This is the future of galactic civilization, not isolated species competing, but all working together, overcoming challenges no one could face alone." Unanimously, the Council voted to expand the integration program. After the presentation, Jake and Katha found a quiet corner, seeking privacy amidst the delegates eager to learn from their experiences. "Dao, do you think this can work on a grander scale?" Keith inquired. Jake surveyed the assembly, where representatives from hundreds of species were engrossed in animated discussions about cooperation and integration. "It's working already," he affirmed. "Look around." A year ago, most of these species scarcely interacted. Now, they're crafting joint educational programs. Keva followed his gaze. "The humans have sparked something that could alter the entire galaxy," she remarked. "No," Jake corrected. "We've all kindled something together. Humans simply demonstrated the possibility." As they watched, Zara approached, accompanied by Lynn and other students from their original class. The group, once divided by fear and instinct, now moved with comfortable familiarity. "So, what now?" Zara asked. "Do we return to normal classes, or continue pushing boundaries?" Jake smiled. "I say we keep pushing. The galaxy still has much to learn about cooperation," Keva concurred. "And numerous other species stand to gain from this approach. Perhaps it's time to reach out to more isolated civilizations." Professor Veltar joined them. "Actually," he said, "the Council has already approved funding for expansion teams. They need experienced students to establish integration programs in other institutions." "Are you asking us to teach?" Jake asked. "I'm asking you to be ambassadors," the professor responded. "You've shown the success of interspecies collaboration. Now, you can help others learn these lessons." Looking at his friends now, despite their evolutionary differences, Jake realized that humanity's strength hadn't always laid in conquest. It had always been in bringing others together, showing them what was possible. "When do we start?" he asked. Sector, who had approached their group, answered, "The universe is vast, and many species still cling to the illusion of strength in isolation." Jake gazed at his classmates, seeing not foes but partners in a cause larger than any of them could achieve alone. "Then let's show them what cooperation looks like," he declared, as they began planning their next mission. Jake considered the transformation since that first day when a timid carnivore joined their class. They'd learned that evolution had furnished them with diverse gifts, but it was their choice, a profoundly human choice, to use those gifts for collective betterment, believing the future could always surpass the past, as long as everyone contributed.